self-hating, racial and gender ideologies, but it's broadly more of a national self-loathing ideology. And I think that, like many things, this is solvable.
So we're paying people to hate America.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I think that's solvable. That piece of it's solvable. Yeah.
I mean, this is like we're just punching ourselves in the face here. I suggest we stop punching ourselves in the face.
And this gets back to religion, Elon. You want to know why? Because, it's like a self-flogging, right? It's like wearing a hair shirt, right? There's a sort of religious practice. People, engage in. This is an interesting feature of exists in certain Christian tradition, exists in certain Hindu traditions, exists in basically every major tradition in the world. Is there's some sect that does engage in a form of self-flogging. And so I think what's happening here is being bigger than themselves, have a hole the size of God in their heart, and traditional religion or God doesn't fill it. They engage in a different kind of self-flogging instead. I believe that's much of what the climate cult internationally is all about, is a substitute for religion and self-flogging. But I think the same goes for American self-hatred. It's complicated.
Completely disagree with the climate stuff.
We could go into that. You want to go into that a little bit?
I think as an individual, I might have, I think I might have done more to help with climate things than any other individual by pretty big margin. And so sometimes people will bizarrely think I'm like right wing or something. I'm like, I've been like literally put sweat and tears next level into saving the environment. What are you talking about? This is so insane. So I at least I perceive myself to be a moderate, and I aspire to be a moderate and reasonable and not to take and like just to care about our fellow humans and further civilization. And I think part of it also is that the United States has been on top for such a long time. There's a certain complacency that results when you've been winning for the United States really has been winning for so long. Yep. And it's like a pro sports team that has been winning for so long. You get a little complacent, and that's, I think we should be wary of that. We should not be complacent. And start thinking like there aren't any external enemies. It's just like with ancient Rome. If Rome didn't have an external enemy, they would have civil war.
Yes.
And so in the absence of if you just perceive yourself to be essentially invulnerable, then internal conflict is a natural consequence of that, because there are no external enemies.
Well, look, I think
but in reality, there sort of are, or at least there is external competitors, And we're obviously facing a huge transition that's happening in the world today. Is obviously the rise of China and the fact that the Chinese economy is probably going to be 2 to 3 times the size of the U.S. economy. This is really a big change, because for as long as anyone's been alive, the United States has the biggest economy in the world. But if in the case of China, you simply said, assume a GDP per capita efficiency relative to the U.S. of 70%, that would be roughly equivalent to 1 billion people in the U.S., or 3 times our current population. So the probability is really, China's going to, we will be in a rather odd situation that no one actually can even remember, where there is an economy twice our size.
Yes, so I think that's correct on I think there's a couple points in there, Elon, really important points that are actually encouraging for the United States, oddly enough. One was your point about the fact that our success bred our entitlement, right? It's inevitable. This is just history, right? Success breeds entitlement.
Yes. And it's normal. It's a human thing.
It's a human thing. And then entitlement breeds laziness. And then, of course, victim culture follows, because victimhood vindicates laziness. And you saw this in Rome, too. And so I appreciate the ancient Roman Empire analogy. Actually, my second book was all about exploring whether or not we are at the equivalent of the end of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And
which we should be worried about.
I think we should be talking about it. We should be talking about it. So I had took a dark turn during that book, midway through Nation of Victims. And halfway through the book, I concluded that actually we should be so lucky as to be Rome, because Rome lasted a couple thousand years, right? If you include the second half. And, we might be more like Carthage, which only lasted a few hundred. But
actually,
it depends.
But definitely got short-circuited there.
Yes, it did. And so I think that was one version of it. But actually, my more careful study of it was that we talk about the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. It turns out there were many rises and many falls, actually.
Yeah, sure.
There was no one rise and one fall. And I kind of see the rise of this American experiment the same way. I think there will be many rises and there will be many falls. But I don't think we're done with this ball game yet. I think